The OldPreMeds podcast, session number 197. You're a non-traditional student entering the medical field on your terms. You may have had some hiccups along the way, but now you're ready to change course and go back and serve others as a physician. This podcast is here to help answer your questions and help educate you on your non-traditional journey to becoming a physician. Welcome to the OldPreMeds podcast. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, your host here every week, where I get to take questions from the non-traditional pre-med form over at premedforms.com. This week, I have a very interesting question, something that I hope a lot of you don't have to go through. But let's go ahead and jump in. Our student today says, I applied to medical school after completing my MPH, a 2-year program in 1 year's time, and did not get into any schools in the U.S. So I chose to forego reapplication, and I went to Ross University in the Caribbean for medical school in the fall of 2015. Long story short, I did not pass my first semester by less than 1 point. Unfortunately, that meant I had to repeat the entire first semester. I thought really long and hard and did not feel as though the environment was conducive to or for my learning and succeeding. Even considering the fact that I did not pass my first semester added to the fact I would be a graduate of a foreign medical school, I did not feel that my residency chances would be great, so I bailed and decided to reinvent myself, work harder, get smarter, and reapply. So after much deliberation, I've decided to reapply this coming cycle. I'm seeking some advice on my next steps. I'm currently working as a clinical research coordinator, going on my 4th month in the Department of Family Medicine, managing over 70 projects with several clinical trials, NIH-sponsored grants, and other industry grant sponsors such as the NCAA and the Department of Defense. Following my withdrawing from Ross University, I was an adjunct professor at the largest university in Florida for the spring of 2016. I'm currently studying for the MCAT every day for 4 to 6 hours a day, planning to take the new MCAT in March. I'm volunteering 2 days a week with a local primary school vaccination program, elementary and middle school students. I am retaking biochemistry and 4 math courses, algebra, statistics, pre-calculus algebra, and trigonometry, that were taken as dual enrollment courses as a sophomore in high school. My current GPAs are as follows: cumulative 3.42, science 3.4, non-science 3.43. After taking the 5 courses, cumulative 3.53, science 3.48, and non-science 3.58. The reason for not pursuing an SMP or more formal post-bacc is that I do not have the time or money to be able to go without working and just accruing further student loan debt. I will be set with physician shadowing, will have plenty of research experience, great letters of recommendations, and volunteering, and just want the chance to get in the door. I've spoken with a few DO programs, and they all state that students who were previous medical students go through a separate process for review of their applications. My questions are, number 1, is it worth taking a chance and reapplying? Number 2, am I doing the right thing retaking biochemistry as my only science? Number 3, what else can I do to boost my application? Number 4, how do I address the Ross University situation? Number 5, should my personal statement be focused around overcoming failures or focus less on my failures and focus more on marketing the, quote, new me? All right, so here is a great question. This actually was posted a few years ago, so you may have heard like 2015 and the new MCAT. So those are because this was posted several years ago. So it'll actually be interesting if I can get this student to follow up and find out what happens. But I want to answer this question. We picked this one where we're going through a lot of old questions. If you have new questions, go to the forums again, premedforms.com. Go ask a question. We're going through a lot of old questions because we're not getting a lot of new ones. So go ask some questions. But this one was a great one because this is actually something I get students asking every few months. Like, hey, I'm in the Caribbean. I don't want to be here. What will it look like if I drop out and try to apply to U.S. school again? This one's a little bit different, and I've had some students reach out to me with this specific situation, and I've had a student with a very similar story reach out to me, so I'm wondering if this student actually did email me, and I've had a conversation with this specific student, but because this question is anonymous, I don't know. But this student has a huge, huge, huge uphill battle on his or her hands. Is it impossible? No. Is it really, 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 really hard? Yes. And so I'm going to go through these questions and I'll add some context to the answers, and hopefully will give you some insight if this is something that you're thinking about of, I'm going to go to the Caribbean, and if it just doesn't work out, then I'll just reapply to a US school. And let me just make sure right off the bat that I do not at all recommend that. All right. So first question, is it worth taking a chance and reapplying? Now, I can't answer that. Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a physician? Do you want to go to medical school, be a physician, and take care of patients? Then my answer would be, well, of course it's worth it, right? If you want to go to medical school, if you want to be a physician, then you might as well reapply. Now, the question is, are you going to get in? And I don't know, right? The worth it in this question is not, right? Is it worth applying to medical school and going to medical school? The real heart of the question is, should I waste my time? Will I get in? And unfortunately, I can't answer that, right? It's impossible to answer, but I will give you some context. Medical schools want to accept students that they know with as much certainty as they can that the students who they are accepting will get through medical school, ideally in 4 years, right? It's a factory. You start medical school, you finish 4 years later, you go on, you do a residency, you represent the school well, you pass the boards, you pass all of your in-service boards for residency, you pass your board exams once you are out of residency. So that's what schools want. Now, unfortunately, this student has proven, at least with one semester, that they can't pass medical school. Now, the last question, right? Should my personal statement be focused around overcoming failures, or focus less on my failures and focus more on marketing the new me? 1000% the schools are going to want to know what happened, why it happened, and what you've done to overcome. That's any sort of trials and tribulations you've had on your medical school path. If you're a non-traditional student, maybe you've had a DUI and that's why you're non-traditional. You gave up being a physician because you were told that you've had a DUI so you can never get into medical school. Whatever the obstacle that you're overcoming, what happened? Why did it happen? What did you learn from it? How are you different now because of it? How can you assure, as best you can, the admissions committee that it's not going to happen again? That's the direction that your secondary essays are going to have to go into. Your personal statement will focus a little bit on it. The goal of the personal statement is still, why do you want to be a doctor? But I think in this specific situation, it's going to need to have more of the, yes, I screwed up. Yes, this is what happened, and here's why I am a different person. So you're going to have to convince as best you can an admissions committee that it's worth taking a chance on you. And a lot of them just won't, because it's not worth their time, their money, their effort to have a potential black mark on their class. So that's the battle you have to overcome, is the fact that you've already proven that medical school is hard for you. Number two, the question here, am I doing the right thing retaking biochemistry as my only science? And I would say no, right? Again, you have proven that medical school is hard for you. And now you're going back and retaking classes and you're avoiding the science classes, except for biochemistry. And so again, that's telling the admissions committee, I'm scared of science classes. I'm not very good at science classes. I don't want to take any more science classes to potentially do poorly in. So I do think that's a mistake. Yes, math for AMCAS counts as science, but it doesn't count as science for ACOMA. So you have to be careful there. Number three, what else can I do to boost my application? Without seeing everything in an application, without seeing trends and timelines and everything else, it's impossible to answer. But again, the general framework is consistent clinical experience, consistent shadowing, volunteering as much as possible, some research if you're interested in that, and obviously good grades and a good MCAT score. Number four, how do I address the Ross University situation? I talked about it a little bit already, but again, you have to talk about what happened. Why did you struggle at Ross? And you have to be careful whenever you whether it's failing medical school, whether it's failing undergrad, whether it's being arrested, whatever happens in your journey, the discussion has to be around you and not them. You can't say that Ross set you up for failure. You can't say that the environment at Ross wasn't exactly needed for you. You have to focus on your mistakes. You have to own this situation. And so you need to own it. You need to talk about what you've learned from it. You need to talk about how you've moved on, how you've grown. Now, the problem is, again, going back to number 2, retaking biochemistry as the only science, my question would be, how have you proven that you've grown? Right? This quote, new me, I haven't seen, with the exception of biochemistry, I haven't seen a track record of doing well in the sciences to show that you've overcome, that you've figured out this new learning style. And again, kind of going full circle, medical school is much, much, much harder than undergrad classes. And you retaking some math classes in undergrad, great. You can get an A in undergrad classes, whether it's science or math or whatever. Medical school is going to be a different level. And the medical schools you are applying to know that medical school is going to be much harder. And they always are taking a risk, right? Every student who they accept, it's a risk. Will this student do well in medical school, or were they just good in undergrad? Right? It's the analogy of really being a star in college and then not really doing well in the professional leagues, right? Whether you're a Heisman Trophy winner playing college football and then going to the NFL and being a dud. You may have a 4.0 college GPA, but then medical school is like, I'm not used to this speed of knowledge and information and learning. And I'm not very good at it, right? I was great in undergrad, not so good anymore. And so that it's always a risk with every student. And for you as a student, or at least for this specific student, it's less of a risk and more of a known thing. This student went to medical school and didn't do well. So it's a hard situation. Never say never. My advice in this situation, as it is with almost every situation, is build relationships, right? Find the medical school that you want to sink all of your effort into and build that relationship with that school and prove to them that you're worth the chance. All right. I hope that was helpful for you. If you have a question you want answered here on the OldPreMeds podcast, again, go to premedforums.com, click on the non-traditional pre-med form, and ask a question there. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the OldPreMeds podcast.
This is MedEd Media.